Peace, peace. This your host, Selah Shalom, and this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of YEHOVAH and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible, or WASPI. And the topic of discussion today is called the establishment of Osiris. Now, in the Book of Wars against YEHOVAH, chapter 47, verse 1 through 25, it states, verse 1, Osiris defaults on setting up his heavenly kingdom of his own and dominion over Arabia and Persia, and Helen said, let Tian and Sudga pursue their course in destroying. Mine shall be in the opposite way. Verse 2. Osiris the False said, 3 kinds of bad people I have found in heaven and earth. They that are forever finding fault and putting down what others have built up. They are most crafty in argument to find flaws of others, the inconsistencies, errors, and shortness. But there is nothing in them to build up anything in heaven or on earth. The next bad man is he who finds fault not only with all that he hath ever been, but with all propositions designed for a new state of affairs. He is as worthless as the shaft of a spear without a head. The third bad man I have found is he who, seeing the faults and errors of others, harpeth not upon them, but plungeth into work with something new and bold, involving himself and others in disaster. And these 3 have the great multitude, the world, to take care of. I alone am capable of destroying and building up. Verse 3. The non-resistance of the faithists hath ever made them dependent on the mercy of their neighbors. In heaven and on earth they must be destroyed, and their doctrine also. So here Osiris is saying that the non-resistance, the faithists, meaning the followers of the Creator, they must be destroyed because they will not change their ways to worship these deities. Verse 4. In destroying their doctrine, I must give something in the place. I have labored to put away YEHOVAH and establish the Lord God. Now to put away the later and establish myself as myself will take other hundreds of years. Better then is it that since Dais is cast into hell, I take the names Lord God and Dais and the Creator, and all such as are acceptable in heaven and in earth. Verse 5. Neither will I rob them of their rites and ceremonies, but so add thereunto, that by the superior glory they will accept mine. So he's going to allow the people to continue to practice whatever rites and ceremonies and customs that each tribe in each country was practicing, and then add his in there as well. And that'll be done through the oracles. Verse 6. Nor will I abridge mortals of their learning, but on the contrary, but most exacting and high in aspiration, for by this will I win the approval of the wise and learned. Verse 7. Mortals love idols, therefore I will give them idols. Male and female will I give unto them. Verse 8. Osiris then called Baal, Ashtaroth, and Egypt into his heavenly council chamber, and said unto them, verse 9, 2 idols shall ye inspire mortals to build unto me, and one shall be the figure of a male horse, with the man's head, and chest and arms, and he shall point upward, signifying heavenly rest, and the other shall be the figure of a mare, with the head and breasts and arms of a woman, and she shall hold the bow, an arrow before her, and behind her a sword and a rose, signifying for righteousness' sake. And the male idol shall be called Osiris, and the female Isis. Verse 10. For wherein I assert myself creator of all the living, I must show unto men that I am male and female. So now he's giving you a rundown of his concept of creation. Verse 11. Which of a truth is the fountain of all that is in heaven and earth, wherein projection and reception are the sum of all philosophy. Verse 12, in which ye shall teach that to go forth is Osiris, and to rest in meekness is Isis, for which the ancients used the bull and the lamb. Verse 13, for I was a globe, boundless as to size, and swift as to motion, and I put forth a wing for flying, and a hand for labor, by which are all things conquered and subdued. And beneath the wing I set the Lamb of peace as a sign of the flight of my defenseless. but under the hand I set the head of a bull as a sign of my dominion. Verse 14. And I made heaven and earth with wings flying forth, bearing the serpent and the sun, square with the world, and circumscribed have I made all things, good and powerful. Verse 15. And in man's hand I placed the key to unlock the mysteries of the firmament of heaven, and the power and wisdom and riches and glory of the earth. Into his hand I placed the club to slay the lion or to subdue him. Verse 16. For I am like unto man, having created him in my own image, and I hold the key of heaven and earth, and dominion over all the inhabitants I created on the earth. I am Ta, I am said, and referring to the Taurus, the bull. Verse 17. I am the light and the life and the death. Out of myself made I all that live or ever had lived. The sun and the firmament I set up as a symbol of my power. The stars and the moon and the things that speak not and know not are the works of my hand. Without me nothing is, nor was, nor ever shall be. Verse 18. Whoso goes forth warring for the right is for me, and I am with him. With warriors I am a god of war. With the peaceful I am a lamb of peace. To do is of me, to not do is not of me, but of death. Any eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Blood for blood, mercy for mercy. But force unto all things with will to conquer. For in these am I manifested unto men. Verse 19. For in the beginning I created the world of my own force, and this is my testimony justifying force, even with violence, when the greater good cometh to the greater number, whereon hangeth my law, in which any man can understand that he, the faithist, fought for righteousness. They would have long since mastered the world and subdued it unto their God. Verse 20. What then is the stratagem of gods, except by some means to reduce men and angels unto oneness in all things? When Osiris had thus addressed the three gods, he waited for them to speak. Baal said, This is a foundation. We have never had a foundation for men nor angels. Ashtaroth said, This is a head and a front to lead the world. And Egypt said, The wisdom of the faithist was in having a direct course. So after Osiris gives his doctrine, he gets a response from the three angels, Baal, Obal, Ashtaroth, and Egypt. And here in the Owaspi, it states that Egypt was an angel. And we're going to get into that later. Verse 21, Osiris said, Then will I revise the doctrine of the earth and heaven. I will not say this is for Dais, nor the Lord, nor God, nor Osiris, nor Apollo, nor any other god, but I will give that which all except YEHOVAHians can accept. Verse 22, For I will allude unto God all things, not defining which God or what God, but God only. The rest will I manage in Ago Adin, my heavenly kingdom. Verse 23, Go ye therefore to mortals and revise the things of Dais unto God. And if mortals question of the oracles to know who God is, say ye, he is Osiris, to the Osirians, Apollo to the Opalians, Isis to the Isesians. He is the creator, the master, the all, out of whom were created all things. He who created man in his own image, who dwelleth on the throne in heaven. Verse 24. But if they question further, asking if he is the ever-present, answer them, nah. And if they say, is he YEHOVAH, the great spirit, answer them, nah. Verse 25. For I will not suffer one faithist to dwell alive on the face of the earth. So here Osiris is laying down the foundation of his philosophy in these regions, Kemet, Arabia, Persia, and Helen, along with Canaan. These were the people who lived simple. The people who lived simple, the forest people and the people who lived out in the desert, they carried the oral tradition from mouth to ear. A lot of things was orally carried out by the people who worship the Creator. So a lot of their records is not known because a lot of it wasn't written down. It's like a person living on a farm, living a simple life. He raised his children with the lessons being learned orally. You learn things orally before you write them down. And a lot of traditions at that time kept that oral tradition. They didn't write nothing down. So if they were killed off, these villages, if you had a community of thousands of people dealing with the oral tradition, and then you have those coming from the cities who write their traditions down on stone, papyrus, and they kill off a people, there will be no way to trace that these people existed for the fact that they had an oral tradition and they lived a simple life in the farmland or in the countryside. So you always had these two sets of people, those who lived in the cities, in the kingdoms. You know, you had your rulers, your kings, your pharaohs, but then you had those who lived in the country, who lived far away from the cities and who didn't engage in nothing that the pharaohs or the kings was doing. They dealt with their own God, which was the creator, while you had these in the city try to influence their gods on them, you know, the followers of Seth and Horus. You know, you may have those who didn't want to follow that. You know, you may have those when they came with that doctrine that they have doctrines that predates that. So the same way that some people will say that, oh, well, why should I follow the Hebrew doctrines when Kemet or Egypt goes farther back? It's not about which comes first. It's about who's dealing with the creator or who's dealing with the false. If you're dealing with a false deity, whether today or whether 3,000 years ago, it's still false. So 3,500 years ago, if people were dealing with the creator, and then out of nowhere, you got these fellas coming up from the south saying, worship my God. You know, we the followers of Seth, or we the followers of Horus. We the followers of Osiris. But you tell them, well, we know nothing about that. We've been worshiping our creator long before you come with this new thing. So it's the same way, you know what I'm saying? When they came with these new doctrines, when the followers of Seth and the followers of Horus, as is stated in the Egyptian Book of the Dead and the Egyptian story of creation, that it shows you that these deities inspired mortals through warfare and to overthrow. And you see that on the Narmer palette. It's showing you that Narmer is holding up a club about to strike a man who was harmless. This could be a depiction of a takeover of a village or a takeover of people who didn't decide they want to worship your God or decide they didn't want to bow down to the Horus or the Hawk or the Sun King. They said, we don't deal with that. So you slay them off. And this is all through history. This ain't nothing new. This pattern of warfare or the establishment of false gods is all through history. So like I said before, you know, just because it's ancient history and it comes from us, it's all good. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it was righteous. You know what I'm saying? Some people say, oh, there was no wars in Kemet. Yes, there were. They got carved in stones, Nubians tied up. So we was warring amongst each other before the Caucasian even came in, before the Arabs even came in. That's why we fell from glory, because of us warring amongst each other. And with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings and catch you on the next documentary called The First Migration into Kemet or Egypt. Shalom.